So upside down with the clear penetrating epoxy sealer, that's what it originally would have looked like. But now, and I've still got to varnish, but now that's what I get. As I mentioned in part 1, I filled the little chips caused by the jigsaw blade with the marine filler and then sanded it flush so the veneer had a better surface to adhere to. I then lay the veneer out just to double check that it was the right size before applying it, which was smart as I later found out that it sticks very well and doesn't really give you a second chance to stick it down. So when I was confident that I had the right size and cut, I went to stick it down, but as you can see, leaving it out overnight to curl up wasn't the best idea. But the whole reason for starting with the V-Berth panels is to allow me to figure out the best way to veneer the ply while being able to hide any mistakes that I might make, which you will see was a good idea. Just as a side note, I will be making a dedicated video on the whole veneering process once I feel I've got a good system in place that's durable and looks good. So, if you have any questions, let me know down in the comments and I'll try my best to answer them in that video. So after making sure the placement of the veneer was just right, I peeled away the corner and stuck it down. I then slowly peeled away the backing as I pressed the veneer down, making sure to remove any air bubbles. Once I'd removed the backing and lightly pressed the whole surface, I started to apply as much pressure as I possibly could using a 1-inch wallpaper seam roller. I couldn't see the edges of the ply because of the veneer, and I kept rolling over the edges, so I flipped the panel over and cut the veneer flush so that when trying to apply as much force as I could, I knew where the edges were. It's important to apply as much pressure to the edges as possible, as this is where delamination would start. As I mentioned in part 1, the two pieces of veneer I received were slightly different shades. This meant I needed to cut one of the sheets in half, but with the main panel of the V-Berth being slightly longer than half a sheet in length, a filler piece was needed. This was the largest panel and meant I needed to joint the two sheets of veneer together. It seemed as though the edges had already been trimmed during the process of applying the pressure sensitive adhesive, and the two edges lined up quite nicely. I used low-tack masking tape to hold the pieces together, but had problems with the veneer not staying flat, possibly another problem caused by leaving the veneer out overnight. This caused me to concentrate too much on making sure the edges lined up and resulted in quite a bad mistake you'll get to see in a couple of minutes. After masking the two parts of the sheet of veneer together, I flipped it over to cut out what I would need to cover the panel, plus a little bit more to make it easier to apply, and then done the larger panel in the same way as the other two. I definitely made the right choice, because that top panel now looks a lot darker. Right, all that's left to do now is give it a coat of epoxy and then give it a week or so to cure. I put masking tape on the bottom of my router and then used the flush trim bit to clean up the edges of the veneer before applying the epoxy. This is the problem I've had, and why it was a good job I've decided to do this panel and not the chain locker first. What happened was I was concentrating so much on trying to marry up the seam and joint it properly that this side touched down and stuck a little bit off, so there was a ridge that I tried to smooth out, and this is what I've been left with. One thing I did find is that the joints in the veneer where the two pieces meet seem to either open up or close back up. I can only imagine this is because of the temperature or the humidity, but means next time I do this, I'll do it all on the same day, just to lock the veneers together with the epoxy. I primed the West System epoxy pumps using the 105 resin and the 205 hardener. This hardener has a slight amber tint to it, but cures much faster. Next time, as I can leave the panels warm and undisturbed over the weekend, I'm going to switch to the 207 clear hardener, which takes a little bit longer, but I am trying to keep the veneer as light as possible. This was my first ever time working with epoxy, and I decided to try applying it with both a normal brush and a foam brush. I preferred the thicker coat I got with the normal bristled brush, and there seemed to be less air bubbles. But next time I'll try applying the epoxy with a roller and then burst the little air bubbles with either a brush or a gas torch, whichever works best. The coats applied went on well, but the advice that the bubbles would just pop didn't work. I'm hoping these will fill in well with varnish after I've lightly sanded the epoxy. I didn't varnish this week as I've noticed some lighter areas on the end grain of the ply and want to go over these with the clear penetrating epoxy sealer, rather than leaving what might be a weak link. This video officially puts me 1 week ahead, and I was going to release this video on Monday, but I decided to take the opportunity to get ahead, and hopefully this shows in the production quality as I've got more time to edit each video now. So let me know in the comments if there's anything you like about the videos or if there's anything you think could be improved. I'm still new at this and I'm still learning.